Hey, it's such a pleasure to have you here today, Daniel-Ryan Spaulding at the Jerusalem Post podcast.
Thanks, Inbar.
Thank you so much. As a leading non-Jewish voice advocating so strongly for Israel, tell our viewers, where did your connection to Israel begin?
I was raised in Canada, and I moved to Europe when I was about 25, 26. I'm a stand-up comedian and a writer, and I sort of traveled a lot. I performed in over 50 countries, and I lived in Berlin for 5 years, and it was there where I met Israelis and became friends with Israelis and started visiting Israel and performing here and shooting content here and developing really close friendships here. And a lot of misconceptions that I had about Israel. I didn't actually really know much about Israel. Or the conflict, like it all just seemed very disturbing and scary. And I was always very, like, I didn't get hooked into any really, like these sort of wormholes of like propaganda against Israel. But I just definitely didn't really understand the conflict. And then once I got here, I sort of learned more about the country and a lot of the misconceptions that people have about Israel. I sort of resolved within myself and figured things out. So when October 7th happened, I was so disturbed by everything and disturbed by this vicious anti-Zionism and all the lies about Israel that I felt compelled to speak up.
Wow. That's First of all, that's amazing. And I think Israel and the Jewish people, have a lot to thank for, because it's so often that you see the Jewish people advocating for Israel, but it's so unoften to see, not popular to see, non-Jewish advocating. That's why it's so amazing. And I know it's unpopular to be an advocate for Israel in certain places in the world. Have you personally suffered any consequences since you started advocating?
Well, it's all very bizarre to me. Like, I feel like since October 7th, I feel like we've been living in a twilight zone. Like, this is a parallel universe.
Yeah.
I think that we've just sort of revealed, like, how evil the world has become
Yeah.
and how morally demented the world has become
Yeah.
and how I feel like it's really a war on reality. And I certainly, even not being Jewish, if you advocate for Israel or stand by the Jewish people or even just say I'm a Zionist, you can be met with such intense hatred. And I think that, especially in terms of the information war against Israel, when October 7th happened and a lot of celebrities spoke up, Amy Schumer and Sarah Silverman and prominent Jewish people spoke up. They were hit with such hate and bot attacks, and
And
they
I'm sure it
silenced
stops.
them. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
but we'll get into a little bit more of my story. But I coincidentally moved to America a week after October 7th. I moved on
Wow.
October 16th,
Yeah.
and so I did a viral video shortly after October 7th that sort of that went viral, and it just coincided with me moving to New York.
Wow.
So the universe was sort of working in this way where it just sort of propelled me into this new life,
Yeah.
and so I just decided to go with it.
Yeah. And you said that you are afraid to have a show in New York during that
Well,
time?
um, as I sort of thought that things would get better, but it just sort of seemed to keep getting worse.
Yeah.
And I was doing stand up. I was doing my show all throughout the autumn and into January and February, and then it kind of got to a point where, you know, I didn't know like if the venue would want my show. I didn't know I had to learn so much about Israel, and these subjects are so heavy and dark, and especially like talking about terrorism and stuff
Yeah.
like that. You know, it just sort of yeah, like it was just hard to know, like if like it's scary once you start talking about these things. Like, would someone come and hurt me at my show? That's another reason a lot of Jewish comedians, even though they are very pro-Israel and they have the information to communicate to people, a lot of them don't speak up because they're scared someone might come and hurt them as they're touring.
Yeah, and they just stay silent.
And that's
because there's also there's a little personal, loss when you're a comedian, right?
Yeah.
And you make money out of shows that you do,
Yeah.
and that can affect once you start advocating. There's a personal loss here.
Yes and no. I think that however my career, I sort of decided however my career takes shape, it's very important for me and my journey in life, especially to try to offer a voice for the hostage families.
Yeah.
Because not enough people were doing that.
Yeah.
And so when I was asked to be involved in events, I was so happy to do that and to meet those families and to record their stories and have interviews with them and meet them and get to know them. Because life isn't, we're only here for a limited amount of time, and it's very important that we live meaningful lives.
Yeah.
And honestly, once I was at the Comedy Cellar in New York, like there's a lot of really great intellects there, and I connected more with like writers and scholars and academics. Like when you're actually talking with a lot of these stand-ups, like they're not that nice and they're not that interesting, and a lot of them are really mean and they have bad attitudes and they have massive egos, and I guess maybe I'm meant to maybe do more something with writing, or I love doing comedy and I would never stop doing comedy, but it's okay. Not everyone is meant to be off performing in clubs their whole life. Most people do stand up to get a TV show or to be able to get enough notoriety to write a book that sells well. And so like for me, I love performing, but I'm I've sort of realized that you have to just sort of let life unfold and do, like, more and more as I get older, the more I just sort of own my who I am and my values, and just go forward in life whatever way I feel I need to.
I admire that.
Thank you.
I really do. I do. It's amazing. And anti-Semitism is rising, and I know you were in New York and you experienced it firsthand. And what do you think of the new policies of the American government against the anti-Semitism, and where do you think, what else can they do to stop this crazy, crazy hate?
Yeah. So I've done so much research on anti-Semitism because it fascinates me.
Wow.
And I've, met with the top scholars and diplomats and academics. And Jew hatred is it's the oldest kind of hate. It is something that destroys societies. Not just that, it's usually a society that's already on the decline or about to fall apart. That is the mechanism that emerges from the collapse of that society.
Wow, interesting.
So when something isn't working in a society, the Jews get blamed. So things like Ayanna Pressley, the congresswoman, she made statements saying, why do we send all these weapons to Israel, but we don't have health care in America? Like, the fact that you don't have universal health care in America is a completely separate issue than the fact that Israel is at war with the Islamic Republic that has terrorist regimes at its borders, and Israel needs allies to be able to arm itself in a war that is self-defense. It's about self-defense.
Yeah, exactly.
And so
we're not the attacker.
That has nothing to do with the fact that you don't have health care. So when problems emerge in a society, it's the same thing as Jews as a people get blamed.
Yeah.
Now it's Israel as a country, the Jew, Israel, being blamed. And these are all things that, the Muslim Brotherhood and the IRGC use in their misinformation and Qatar and their propaganda campaigns to try to isolate Israel from its Western allies.
Interesting.
So I could talk about anti-Semitism for hours and hours, but I think more than anything, people need to know how anti-Semitism functions,
Exactly.
because it's not just like, oh, Jews, I don't like their hats and I don't like their curls, or like, I don't like their menorahs. Like, these are the anti-Semitism is a very complex kind of hate. It's sort of like a conspiracy theory, and it's both kicking up and kicking down, and it's a shapeshifter. Whatever a society or a person doesn't like about themselves, they project onto the Jews or onto Israel as the Jew.
Interesting. That's very interesting. And there's been some really horrific videos coming out of Syria lately. And I know that a lot of these Christian Arabs are suffering. And it seems like the media is not talking about it as much as if it was Israel doing it. And let's talk about the videos that came out of Gaza after October 7th. It was Israel sending leaflets, and warning the people, leave this building, and then they attack the building, right? There wasn't any soldiers shooting at civilian people begging for their lives, and it seems like the media is just totally ignoring what's going on there. Where do you think this is coming from?
Honestly, at first I thought, this is just hatred of the Jews, but I also think it's almost like this love of radical Islam.
Wow.
I think that the American public, and specifically the left, has been so demoralized and so detached from reality, and so much indoctrination and subversion has happened in academia.
Yeah.
They don't recognize what jihad is. They don't know what it is. They think that these are people who are fighting for land or fighting against imperialism. And yeah, if they slaughter some civilians or rape some civilians, that's just like their culture.
Wow.
Like, no, jihad and the idea of we will dominate you, you are going to be living under Sharia law, like no religious minorities.
They don't accept anyone else.
No women's rights,
Exactly.
no gay rights, bow to Sharia, bow to jihad. That is what October 7th was. That is what is happening in Syria. That is what is happening to the Hindus in Bangladesh. That is what has happened to Iran. It is radical Islam taking over a nation. And that is what HTS is in Syria. I know that people want to imagine that he's like this reformed terrorist. Yeah, he did. He was like kind of with Al-Qaeda, but now he has a beautiful suit and he has a nicely coiffed beard.
Exactly.
And this is like the Muslim Brotherhood strategy. And Americans
seems like they're doing a great PR job, especially even how he looks. Look at him
Yeah,
today.
well,
Look at him in the picture before.
Yeah.
And then look at a picture today,
Yeah.
suddenly with that suit and everything.
This is like the dumbing down of the West, and also the demoralization of the West. It's the racism of low expectations. What? A person of color would never lie.
Yeah.
What? A person of color would never intentionally commit murder. Everyone who's a person of color is just perfect and wonderful. Yeah. And it's these evil Jews who took their land that they're fighting against. It's this dumbing down, and this simplification and the projection of Western values and Western ideas onto a Middle Eastern conflict. Mm-hmm. People just think of Jews as like white people.
Yeah.
Judaism is a religion, but it's also an ethno-nation. It's a Middle Eastern tribe. And that's one of the biggest problems facing, I think, the Jewish diaspora, is they lost their indigenous connection to Israel.
Yeah.
Israel is a nation of the Jewish people. It's a Middle Eastern tribe.
Yeah.
People speak Hebrew in Israel.
Yeah.
People, like they're practicing the same religion on the same land that their ancestors 3,000 years ago did.
Yeah.
But because Jews have been scattered all throughout the world, people think of it as a religion.
Yeah.
It is a religion, but it's also a people connected to this nation.
In a way, I think, for Jewish people to live around the world with the anti-Semitism rising, it should be a bit scary for them, to see what's going on. So if they start advocating now for Israel, their position is going to be even worse. So maybe that's one of the reasons why they're trying to run away from it.
100%. Because anti-Semitism is so scary and it crept up on everyone.
Yeah.
This infiltration happens so slowly. And so, like, for me, having never lived in the United States before, I think that that was a really big benefit for me, because I was all of a sudden coming into this world that I didn't really fully understand, with the knowledge and the experience and the life experience and the travel experience of someone who had lived overseas for 15 years. So even though the way I speak, people might think that I'm an American, but I wasn't. I've never lived in the United States before. So anti-Semitism is so scary to be around, and this hatred of Israel and these lies about Israel have been festering, especially like on the recesses of the internet for so long, that when October 7th happened, it was this explosion. It was a 20-30 year plan that all of a sudden was activated.
And why do you think the media is so blind?
I think that it's the influence of Qatar. I think that Qatar has really funded and gotten people in to journalism, Hollywood. I think there's a lot of Qatari money there, and a lot of subversion from a lot of journalists who are super, super far left, basically communists. Because communists also, we have to understand there's two sort of forces at play. There's Islam and then there's communism. And communists also want to disassociate the West from Israel, because like the communist idea is about like disconnection of religion, because religion gives people sort of basic moral concepts of good versus evil, right versus wrong. And communism is all about subversion and getting people to bow to the state, that the state should be in charge of their morals, as opposed to what religion, what Judeo-Christian values have in alignment with. So I think that there's definitely like ideological reasons for that. And then also just money. I think that, if you look at some of the programming, like the series Mo, which is basically the second season is just full on Palestinian propaganda.
Wow. Haven't seen. I need to write it down.
Rami Youssef as well, that stand-up comedian. There's been sort of this platforming. Dave Chappelle as well. There's been this platforming and slow subversion in Hollywood of these lies about Israel. And anything that is sort of pro-Israel is seen as very right-wing, very evangelical, very Republican. And it's just happened so slowly that people didn't see it coming.
Wow. Yeah. And how do you explain the LGBTQ support for Hamas when clearly it is so clear that they are against the movement, and if anyone enters Gaza from the community will be immediately annihilated? How do you explain?
Well, the Muslim Brotherhood has infiltrated the far left activist community. So there's different people like Linda Sarsour, these different sort of agents, I would say, that have basically for a very long time targeted all the different far left communities in New York, the activist communities. And that's the Free Palestine movement has targeted these far left activists because it's people who are, I think maybe initially they're people that care about humanity and want to make the world a better place. But it's all been very twisted and corrupted because people on the left are easier to manipulate.
Yeah.
So Islamists have targeted people on the left. Yeah. And so the Women's March really got indoctrinated and infiltrated by Muslim Brotherhood. And then also Nation of Islam as well got very infiltrated in the Women's March. And so that really deep, awful anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism and all the lies about Israel and the distortion of history, the distortion of timelines, a lot of that got into the activist community and as a result spread into the queer community. And it's all very calculated too. I truly believe that the progressive pride flag with the Arabization of the triangle, that was intentional. That was dawah. In Islamists, they have this idea of spreading Islam through imagery and through this slow sort of creeping in of different Arabization sort of imagery. And so if you look at the progressive pride flag and the Palestinian flag, like they match up just on a visual level. I think that a lot of people have been hooked into cause and effect, or the inversion of cause and effect. They think that the reason why Palestinians are committing terrorism is because of the security measures. But the security measures are there because they commit terrorism, because of the jihad, because people come in from the Palestinian territories and shoot people and kill people. But when you grow up in a society where there is no violence, and there is no terrorism in that way, there might be school shootings or something like that, you imagine, okay, here is these people living in Israel who are like, doing well for themselves. And then you have poor, oppressed Palestinians who had their land taken away. Of course, they're committing terrorism because you hold them behind a wall and it's this inversion. And the story is so, this inversion is so easy for people to understand. The complexity and the nuance and the history is a lot more difficult to explain. And then with anti-Semitism as well, there's already this this built-in distrust or hatred of Jews. And so it's a very easy, I believe that the reason why they never agreed to a peace treaty is because the visuals of the checkpoints and the security measures have benefited them so well. This is how they're using this imagery as a way to
show themselves as the poor, oppressed.
Well, and if they do suffer oppression or poverty, it's because their leadership are jihadists,
and they're taking all the aid money that they're getting and building tunnels in order to kidnap Jewish people.
So it's not that the plight of the Palestinians is really a result of their leadership and their willingness to commit this terrorism and their willingness and their desire to fight and wage this jihadist war against Israel. But the strategy of the Muslim Brotherhood is to use this imagery to spread this lie so that the West, and specifically the left leaning political parties, become so anti-Semitic and so anti-Israel that eventually Israel loses all of its allies. They're not able to be able to buy weapons to defend themselves. And eventually that, because Islamists, they don't think in 2 years or 5, they think in 10 years, 20 years, 50 years. So that's eventually the goal.
So you think that's where the world is going?
No, I think we're going to stop it. I think that it's going to get so insane and so chaotic that eventually people will turn to other other information and want to hear other sides. And we can see that even just now. Like I've been liberal and progressive, and like I never in a million years thought that I would ever be happy about any Republican policy. And now, like, I'm so happy that Marco Rubio is the Secretary of State. I'm so happy that, these terror supporters are being deported. Like, I'm like, who am I? But
Exactly.
this is the left has collapsed to such a degree.
Yeah.
And it's so ridiculous that eventually people are going to have to ask themselves, wait a minute, this is terrorism.
Yeah,
Like, why am I
exactly.
supporting terrorism?
Exactly.
Like, and then they'll have, podcasts, and they'll have information where they can get the answers that they need. Because the truth is there. It's just that Israel, unfortunately, like, it's hard to be an ally to the Jewish people and to figure it all out and to try to explain it, because it's just so much hate.
I think it's only when they're going to suffer themselves and they're going to feel it on their own,
Yeah.
bodies in their own countries. That's when it's going to actually, hit or kick in the fact that they're also in danger. And
But even then, like, I see, I lived in Berlin, and there will be terrorist attacks in Berlin. And then people will be out on the street being like, no, like refugees, we love you. And it's like, yes, like I get the fact that you want immigration, you want to have a diverse society, but you also have to be aware and understand that people are coming from a different world with different values.
Exactly.
And they think about life differently. And they think about life and death differently, and they think about Jews and Christians differently.
Exactly.
And they might not, like, it's fine to if everyone agrees we are going to live in an Enlightenment society with Western values, and we have freedom of religion.
Yeah.
But when there is jihad, when there is terrorist attacks, when there is people slowly creeping into and infiltrating all of these different institutions and subverting people's understanding of Israel, then that's a problem.
Yeah. And I know you visited Judea and Samaria.
Yeah.
And you posted some cool videos from there. What's the response you've been getting since? I know, because it's a very, very heated subject anyway, even in Israel, you would say.
Actually, it was pretty positive. I had one friend who was upset by it, but it was more just her, like, and what she was going through in her life. But the thing is, I think that ultimately the reason you don't have peace is because of jihad and because of Islamism.
Yeah.
Like, that wouldn't change regardless of who was living in Judea and Samaria and who wasn't.
Exactly.
And actually, the people living there, if there was to be another October 7th, where people where jihadists were able to organize and come into Israel and have a killing spree, those people there would be the front line to prevent them from
coming to the center.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
And so, I don't know. It is a very complex thing. I wanted to go because I needed to get a full awareness of different aspects of this country. And I wanted to show that these are not that everyone living there is not a radicalized settler. There's 600,000 people living there, and the majority of them are nice people who have big families and are living in very nice communities. And so much of the anti-Israel propaganda is focused on Judea and Samaria.
Yeah.
And people do not understand it. They do not understand how the zones are divided. They don't understand that Palestinian leadership agreed to that division. They do not understand that they've been offered so many different peace deals to build their own nation on that land.
Exactly.
They've turned them all down.
Yeah.
The last one, I saw the map of what they were offered. It had a land bridge or like a tunnel to connect Gaza and the territories. It was like, it looked great, but the truth is they are operating, this is like a clash of civilizations.
Yeah.
We have a liberal Western democracy, and then we have Sharia law and jihad. And until there is some sort of de-radicalization program, and all of the terrorism is dismantled, there won't be peace. But it's a change that needs to happen in the Arab world.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's the truth.
Yeah, it is. And let's talk about something happy.
Yeah.
You're in Israel for a month now, right?
Yeah.
Almost a month.
Yeah.
And I know you have this amazing show coming up, the comedy show.
Yeah.
It's brand new, right?
Yeah, it's all about my advocacy and my like starting my life over again in New York, and that whole like year and a half that I was there, and that whole time. It's I can talk about like Middle Eastern politics and be very serious. I had to become an expert, but the show is just really fun and very it is political, but it's also like it's funny.
I'm gonna be there.
Yeah, and I also like talk about just like being a hot gay guy in New York and everything.
Yay. And in Israel.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God.
Tel Aviv is so open to that, right?
Tel Aviv is the gayest city in the world. It's 20% just gay men.
Really? You feel that?
You know, it's true.
Yeah. Wow.
It's really, I hate like this delusion that people just, first of all, don't know anything about Israel. And then what they do know, they try to warp and like this constant war on reality. It's this vibrant gay community, and then people are like, that's pink washing. What do you mean? Because they are gay. I'm like, oh, so like you can be gay anywhere, but just being gay in Israel is pink. Like it's like a bad thing because like there's gay rights in Israel. Like it gets to a point where it's so ridiculous and so hateful. And people eventually can feel, there's a feeling of like, ugh, that's the problem. Like there's all these, like, especially the queer influencers who I believe have been paid by Qatar to do a lot of the anti-Israel propaganda, or they're just anti-Semites. It gets to a point where it's like, you get so grossed out by it and so grossed out by their lack of, morals and just how hateful they are. Like, I'm just hoping eventually we get to that point where people are like, I think I like the hot gay Israeli guys better than the jihad lesbians.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
That's my goal.
Tell me a little bit about the time you moved to New York and this big change you did coming from Canada.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in Canada, and then I was living in Europe for about 15 years. And so I moved to New York. I basically planned it out a year in advance. So I used to be very heavy. I was over 400 pounds.
Oh, wow.
I was 420 pounds, and I had a drinking problem, and I was not really in a good headspace. And so actually a lot of my friends in Israel really sort of helped me through it. And coming here really, I think, gave me a lot of, like, I had such positive experiences here, and people were so loving. And so I sort of eventually kind of snapped out of it. Once I stopped drinking, after about 5 days, I had a really bad drinking problem. But once I was like sober for about 5 days, I was like, oh my God, what am I doing with my life? Like, this is not how I want to be living. Like, I need to try to change my life. So I sort of set forward a plan, like over the course of a year. 3 months was to get sober and lose enough weight to be able to get weight loss surgery. And then 3 months was going through the weight loss surgery, that process. And then 3 months was dedicated to getting the O1 visa to be able to legally move to the United States.
Wow.
And then 3 months was to, sort of round up my life, pay off the different things that I had to take care of, and get plastic surgery to remove the excess skin. Because I had to have a facelift and tummy tuck. I had all sorts of things I had to do.
Wow.
And so I sort of executed this plan. And then just as I was leaving for New York, October 7th happened, like a week before And coming to New York, I did that first viral video and sort of got thrown into this Israeli advocacy world and doing stand-up and dating men and living a life in New York. And so it was sort of like a whole new life for me to go from like within the course of just a year and a half. And it was exciting to start your life again looking so different and seeing how the world treats a thin person versus a heavy person. Like,
interesting.
I've been so focused on Israel and the advocacy, I sort of forgot that I was overweight.
Wow.
And I think that
tell me, how does the world treat? Did you feel a big difference?
Yeah, it's a completely different way of living your life. And more than anything, well, first of all, like, you experience an incredible amount of jealousy and hate from people that used to know you. And I think that maybe one of the reasons why I could handle the hate from being an advocate from Israel was because I could already feel people starting to hate me from my weight loss journey. Because
jealousy.
Yeah, you sort of expect that people would be happy for you when good things happen to you.
Good friends, real friends.
But it's not true. It's very surprising, the reactions.
That's when you find who your real friends are.
Not only that, but it surprises you who does show up and who does take an interest and who does admire you.
Wow.
And how many people can so quickly turn their backs on you. But as I've changed and as I've grown, I've realized that the process of becoming more of who you are and a better person, it brings good things into your life. Even doing this advocacy work, I remember, I think that a lot of Jewish celebrities really missed out. They really missed out on beautiful life experiences. I remember I was at Lizzie Savetsky's daughter's bat mitzvah.
Oh, you were there.
And watching Idan Golan sing, and just the joy of all these kids and being there, like, in this beautiful setting, so pink and so fluffy.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, like, wow, why on earth would I not want to be a part of this?
Yeah.
Why on earth would I not want to embrace this community and this wonderful person? Because what? She voted for the Republicans. So what? First of all, I'm not an American citizen, so I can't vote.
Yeah.
I didn't advocate one way or the other because I'm about policy. and about people. I care about people. But just the fact that I was there, I was like, this is so sad that people don't know how wonderful Israel is and how wonderful this community and all these advocates, like from Democrats to Republicans. I have loved all the people that I've met, and I'm so happy and grateful that I got to be a part of it. And but definitely, like, having the confidence to be myself and the confidence that I look the way I want to look, and I think I look good.
Yeah.
That has brought me the confidence to be like, no, this is what I believe in. This is what I've learned. This is the truth. I'm going to tell you because you need to know. And I think that that's the biggest difference.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's so important.
Yeah.
Well, you're totally changing the world's view on Israel. Thanks.
Well, I'm trying. Also, another thing is people treat you very differently. The biggest difference is when I was heavier, people felt the need or they thought that they, on a really deep level, they think in some way that you're stupid or they talk down to you.
Really?
Yeah. And I even see it with people that knew me when I was heavier versus people that only knew me as a thin person. Like, if you had only known me as a thin person, you usually respect my opinions, my decisions. Like, I don't have a lot of people in my life who want to explain things to me or talk down to me. But there are people that knew me before who will try to sort of be like, Daniel, I think blah, blah, blah. Where they try to talk down to me a little bit. Mm-hmm. That's the biggest difference, is that a thin person who is confident will be treated and respected by most people. And a heavy person, even if they are confident and intelligent, there will always be people who want to correct them or talk down to them or, doubt them in some way.
And why do you think is that?
I think
Where does
that
it come from?
it's sort of a intrinsic fat phobia where you think on some level, oh, that person must be dumb or that person must be to be that unhealthy, there must be something wrong with them. They don't really know what they're doing. But the thing is, people compartmentalize problems. So we have personal problems in our life. Maybe someone suffers with anxiety, or they have a problem with confidence, or they are addicted to pain medicine or something.
Or asthma, anything. Yeah.
You might have that problem, but people can't visually see it.
Exactly.
But if you struggle with weight, it's not that you're a stupid person you just have a problem.
Did
like
you grow up
else.
with a weight problem? So since how old?
Since I was 7.
7.
Yeah.
And before that?
I was skinny, but my brother died when I was a little boy. And so that set me, that's a lot to deal with when you're a little child. And so your body, you don't run, you don't play, you're depressed. So then you just get heavy, and it just sort of, it was a problem for me.
You kind of get addicted on,
I don't even think it was like, it wasn't really even food. It was just like my body couldn't
comfort yourself on food in a way?
I don't know, but I don't think my body was able to move in the way that I could. And also obesity runs in my family. Like there is a genetic predisposition
totally
as well.
Genetic, yeah.
But, if you have that as a child and then I was also very smart and academic. So I got more confidence from academia and living in my mind and being creative. And I was always living in my head. I wasn't as grounded into my physical body. And so that was a personal struggle that I had to go through. It doesn't mean that I wasn't fully capable of great things and being a good person. But unfortunately, we live in a society where everything is about the image, which is why the Muslim Brotherhood is so effective.
Exactly.
Because you can be horrible and evil and commit terrorism, but if you put on a nice suit and a beautiful shawl, you can convince people that you're a good person.
Exactly. Do you see yourself moving to Israel in the next few years or anytime
I think
soon?
that, I don't know. I'd have to make gay aliyah. I think I have a plan. I think that you need gay guys to do your PR. So part of the peace plan should be, having maybe 100,000 gay men be able to get Israeli citizenship to help you with PR.
Yeah.
And then have another couple 100,000 Christians to be able to move here to have a little more have them make Nazareth a beautiful Christmas paradise and get some of the but not crazy psycho messianic evangelicals, but nice cute Christians from
showing the nice part of Israel,
South Carolina and Tennessee, just nice kind of Christians, and then just have gay guy Middle East, and we'll have we'll all live in peace together, but just to mellow out once you dismantle all the terrorist regimes, just gay guys and Christians living with the Jews, just mellow things out. So if I had to make gay aliyah, if the rest of the Western world falls to jihad and communism, I could come here.
First of all, that's a great PR plan.
Yeah.
We should suggest it to the foreign ministry.
Yeah.
Definitely. And it's an honor to have you in Israel. And it's an honor for Jewish people to have a non-Jewish advocate for Israel. And I'm so thankful for you being here today in Jerusalem Post. Thank you.
It's okay. It was great.
Thanks. Thank you, Daniel.
You're welcome.